Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Jérémy Jolley, who serves as Senior Director of Education and Community Engagement at the Seattle Symphony. Jérémy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Well, so I'm so excited to talk to you about the work that you're doing in Seattle. But I thought I would just first start off with if you could kind of share what falls within the breadth of your work as the Senior Director of Education and Community Engagement. Obviously, the Seattle Symphony is doing extraordinary things. One of our great and wonderful creative partners helped us to kind of co-curate this. But different orchestras and different institutions sometimes have a different scope to these roles. So I was curious if you could share with us what falls under your purview.
Yes, with pleasure. So the department is focused really on three large buckets. Families, which is our family concert, tiny tots, ticketed events that are really both educational and entertaining with the orchestra, members of the orchestra. We also, all of our school initiatives, so that's really educational focus programs that work within the school programs or with youth orchestras, etc. And then we have overall of community engagements. We have several programs within it that are work with sometimes social services organizations or other youth groups in our area, the Puget Sound area, generally speaking. We go beyond Seattle typically. And that in that community engagement includes the Community Stage Fund, which I'm looking forward to discuss with you today.
Absolutely. And so maybe we should just dive right in. So can you tell us a little more about this program, especially kind of the inspiration behind it, kind of what those goals are, and of course, what what the context of the program is?
Absolutely. So the Community Stage Fund is 4 years in the making. It is meant to provide the space or stages like at Benoit Hall. Benoit Hall is the home of the Seattle Symphony, and we have multiple venues within that building. So the program is here to support local artists and organizations to have access to that stage very little or no cost at all in order to really grow what they do. The inception started during the pandemic. As the Seattle Symphony was trying to still connect with its community, there was a large investment in cameras and gears and a platform that we call Seattle Symphony Plus in order to be broadcasting of our concerts. We also noticed that all of our local organizations have that need. So we started to have this program to invite some of these groups to play on the stage and use all this equipment to stay in touch with their community through the pandemic. This has evolved as we got slowly out of the intensive period of the pandemic, where in-person concerts and activities returned, and therefore the program evolved parallel to this. So now through an application process, local groups and artists have access to one of the stages to hold, whether it's a concert or a fundraiser, whatever they may like. So you have this evolved to connect with audiences.
That's so it's amazing, and obviously that opportunity for all of these groups. Have you found, as now that kind of the program has continued and evolved, that it's changed your relationship with these other institutions, and or that sense of kind of the overall community? Have you found kind of any unintended outcomes or results from the program itself?
Well, it has provided another way in which we can help. We have a lot of different groups here in the community, and having the orchestra is one way. With the orchestra itself is one way to help or to be in touch. But sometimes the orchestra is not the best means. What community needs a space, or what community is something else. So that has just broadened the sort of the the portfolio of the way in which we can connect with audiences and communities in our area. It's given us more tools to do that. Therefore, we can work with groups that we could never work with before, and that is very exciting.
That's absolutely awesome. And especially that kind of embedding in the community, which is so critically important. And I was wondering, since your work is focused in these aspects, that a lot of times, people who watch the show or they're curious how other arts institutions talk about the value of the arts overall, the value of classical music, right? So in other words, especially in engaging with community, sometimes people say, well, what about emergency, food and shelter or
Mhm.
these types of things and the value of the arts? And I was just kind of curious, is there a way in which you talk about that in the community when you're talking with various constituencies? How do you kind of articulate the role that the Seattle Symphony sees itself in the community?
Well, I think it's hard to imagine that we could live just with food or just with shelter. In fact, we know it when we work with organizations that are solely focused on addressing our homelessness crisis in the city. So we work with these partners, and we know that creating an environment where individuals can create, can express themselves, can be themselves, and the arts is a wonderful way in which to do that. So for us to have a sandwich, but also be able to sing goes hand in hand, or be able to see a show goes hand in hand. So it seems completely a misnomer to do one or the other. We are whole beings, and we need nutrition in all these ways. So this in this way we speak about it, and we know that our partners in the social services realm really cherish these relationships. We have a great relationship with Mary's Place, which is a homeless local shelter, and we have a program where they write lullabies. The moms and for their kids write lullaby, and that's very enriching for one's whole being as they are traversing often quite traumatic experiences. They need to let go of this, and the arts helps with that.
Absolutely awesome. And so I also wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how you approach aspects of the different communities that comprise the overall community there. And certain cities, when they think about inclusion work, when they think about a DEI, there may be different communities that they're focused on based on their particular city. In Detroit, we're over 90% African American. Obviously, that's a key aspect that we're looking at in terms of inclusion in the community. And just wondering, are there any either communities that the symphony's either focused on or that you've seen, the ability to be able to connect with there?
I think so. Yes, and yes, every community is different. I had a chance to visit Detroit, and it has its own history of how the city has evolved. Seattle similarly has a different history of how community have been differentiated or included, and who and how it worked. So from neighborhood to neighborhoods, we see vast differences. And some neighborhood might be 25% East, Southeast Asian, and 25% from Mexico and Latin America. So when we work in that neighborhood, we go to focus on these communities. Sometimes just one or the other, and we build with both over multiple years. Similarly, there's some area where there's large African American population, and this is who we focus with. So we go from neighborhood to neighborhood. Our objective is to be specific and to make the decisions with people from that community at the table to create whatever the event may be or the initiative may be together. It's a lot of listening, which I think as musicians or ex-musicians for myself, that's our primary sort of asset. So we should deploy in all its form, not only when we have a violin in hand, but also when we're in conversation.
Absolutely awesome. Well, this work is truly tremendous. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all of my guests. This work obviously is extraordinarily rewarding, and you're bringing so many people kind of into the mosaic that is the Seattle Symphony. But there must be, just as a leader, as an administrative leader in the arts, those tough days. And just
Mhm.
wondering, as a leader, are there any mechanisms or best practices that you use to kind of get past the big challenges, the days that seem like a certain obstacle might be insurmountable?
Right. I personally keep in mind that it's all baby steps. Every step that I make today is to set myself up, or the organization or the relationship, really, which is the key part. I should have said that first. The relationship is the most important part, to the next place. And if we need a pause because there's a little uh, miscommunication or there's a disagreement, it's okay. And then we can renew the conversation later. It's, to me, it's the long-term commitment that is of most importance, and knowing that every step gets you there. We won't solve it. Relationship is not in one meeting and in one concert. It takes many, many years. So this is what I remind myself when I'm in a difficult situation.
Jérémy Jolley, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Aaron.